Okay, go live. I think I'm live. Don't have it here on my phone though. Just gonna give it a second. Okay, yes. I'm live and the sound is good. Okay, perfect. Sorry, I had like a million different things go wrong at the last second here. The link, there was something wrong with the code I have to put in here to stream. My cord got all tangled up in my chair. All right. Hi, everybody. I am super excited to dive into this moon. It has so many interesting things happening. I have a whole bunch of notes. I have them really far away, though. I'm not going to be able to see this. I don't know what that paper was that just flew across the room. Welcome to our new members. Make sure that you read the post over on Patreon so that you have everything that you might need with you. There's a couple of different linked resources as to where you can get your natal chart, and the apprentice cheat sheet and things like that. So definitely make sure you read all of that. I want to kind of start off here in the beginning with a little spiel about my upcoming course. I want to go over like the dates and talk a little bit about what I'm going to be covering. I'm not sure if I'm going to get around to doing like a video on it, you know, to like promote it. And I want to kind of take this little clip from the beginning here. I'm planning on maybe doing a live next week to kind of like answer questions about it, but I am so booked with sessions. I don't think it's going to happen. So I want to just kind of cover it all right now. If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and write them in the chat. And then we'll dive in. We'll dive into the moon and its connection to the pole star and the galactic center, which are going to be some things that I am going to be covering pretty extensively in my course. So give me a second here. I pulled some cards too. We're going to read a little bit out of a book. We're going to go have a bunch of different places here. All right, so I'm very excited to announce that my very long awaited course is in the works. Our first live session will be on Wednesday, June 28th at 9 p.m. I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen and go over to a couple of things here. If you guys are watching this later and you don't care about this, you can just fast forward through this part. Okay, so I thought I had my website up too, but I guess I don't have that up. That's what I exited out of. All right, well, here are our course dates. The way this course is going to work is I found a really great platform that has a live option where you can run and save live videos into course format. I have noticed that my perfectionism manifests as like severe procrastination. And if I have to like fully form a whole course ahead of time and like film all of the videos and edit all of the videos and like obsess on making sure I have all of the information in there, I'll never do it. I just will not do it. I seem to work really well with like a set schedule and these more like live channeling sessions, and that's kind of how I really learned astrology, was just by doing it. And so that's going to be like a big theme of this course, is I'm going to make you guys just do it. So each of the modules, we have 6 different modules. Each of the modules has one lecture. So it's going to be like one of these videos, like how our videos are, probably 3 hours or probably longer. I don't even know how long each one of these videos are going to be. It's going to be pretty extensive. You guys know me. So it's going to be long lectures once a month at 9 p.m. that will be saved for replay, and you guys can come and watch them whenever you want. The week following the lecture will be a full moon. So I have the lecture and the study sessions falling on the weeks in between the moons. So it's really cool the way that this is set up. Right now we're at a Gemini new moon, which would, I guess, fall here because the course hasn't started yet. A new moon is a time of new beginning. New seeds are started, new ideas are born, right? And so we have the new moon. A week after the new moon, we have a lecture. In this case, it's going to be an introduction to Galactic Esoteric Astrology, where I'm going to be covering the syllabus, all of the software that I use, so you guys will have a chance to get it, the books that I use, different resources. And we're going to kind of like blast off into space, and we're going to cover the vastness of it, this landscape of the one, kind of how the whole zodiac is laid out, these big galactic points, the axis mundi, the things we're going to talk about a little bit here tonight. We're going to blast off into space in the first one, and then from there we're going to come back down to basics and slowly work our way back to that same big whole, right? So after every lecture, the week following that is a full moon. We don't meet during that moon except for over here in Patreon, of course. Full moons are a time of culmination, a time of illumination, a time where light is shined, and we have these sort of like aha moments. During this week, in between a lecture and study sessions, you guys are going to be diving into these subjects. You are going to be pondering them, coming up with questions, coming up with analysis, diving into these subjects for yourself like I do. You guys see me, half the time I'm talking about stuff I just learned, so I'm going to really get you guys comfortable diving into this, exploring the unknown, and just diving into it for yourself, speaking the language of the stars, which is what we'll be doing at the study sessions. So the study sessions fall the week after the full moon. Our first one will be on July 12th. And this is, again, a live format where we all sit around. These are actually going to be at 3 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. in hopes to accommodate more time zones. But this is, I was telling Amanda, I'm like, it's going to be like a bunch of philosophers sitting around and just like pondering these concepts, like questioning everything, expanding beyond it instead of really pigeonholing ourselves into some sort of dogmatic practice. Like, I am not here to teach you some sort of like fixed system called Galactic Esoteric Astrology. That does not exist. I'm here to teach you this expanded lens with which to view the sky from a galactic, esoteric, symbolic perspective that is constantly evolving, constantly growing. And so at these study sessions, you guys are going to come with like, what cool shit you discovered about the subject over the week. You're going to share with me. I'm going to share with you. We're going to bring resources. We're going to compare notes. And by the time that we're done with all of these courses, we're going to have 12 videos saved. One lecture for each module and one study session. So these study sessions are recorded live and they will be saved for replay later. So those of you who are doing this live with me, you get this at a discounted rate because you're, kind of part of making it, You don't have to have your video on if you don't want. You don't have to use your real name if you don't want. You can just do audio if you want to converse. But once this is all done and saved, the price will be going up. So if you're interested in doing it, you definitely probably want to be part of this launch because I'm really going to get you guys comfortable doing this, speaking this, and exploring these subjects for yourself, okay? So the second module, we're going to be covering the polarity, the yin, yang, light, dark, masculine, feminine, the two, right? We're going to be covering the 3 modalities, cardinal, mutable, fixed, and we're going to be covering the 4 elements. And then we'll have, of course, a study session on that. Module 3, we're going to be covering the 12 signs, the 12 houses, and that 13th sign that isn't really a 13th sign. We'll dive into that then. But Ophiuchus, right? This area of the sky that houses the axis mundi that we're going to talk about so extensively here tonight in this video, that really starts to return us back to the one, to that source of singularity within that is symbolically represented in the sky through Ophiuchus working to integrate and tame the serpent and unlock the galactic center and the pole star, those sources of singularity. And we're going to talk about this extensively. We're going to talk about planets, minor planets like Eris, asteroids, and the basics of their dance with each other. So we're going to cover some aspects. We're not going to get into septiles and all kinds of crazy things, but we're going to cover the traditional aspects. This is really a foundational course. It's a lot of the basics of these concepts, and then I'm going to have webinars in the future where I expand on all of these. I want to just really give the framework of how I run my practice, how I come up with these interpretations, how I read a chart, how I find the fixed stars, the asteroids, the black holes. I'm really going to be making a lot of PDFs throughout this that are going to be accessible to you, and then we are going to be compiling our notes together and creating kind of like an ebook, really. And I'm going to throw this out there now. If there are those of you out there that are like, Allie, I love this, I would really like to do this, but I'm super broke. Totally get it. I'm super broke too. So broke. Oh my gosh. Especially after all that stuff went down with my dog. We just cannot catch up from the bills. So I get it. So I want to offer those of you who are Patreon members the opportunity for a couple of you to do it for free. I just need to figure out how I would get you into the software, to the course, but to do it for free and in exchange for kind of helping me compile some of these notes and make some of these PDFs, taking notes during the lectures and, helping me kind of compile it together. So if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe some of you with some nice Virgo placements, hit me up. Okay, so we're going to be covering the asteroids and how the asteroids, the planets, and these archetypal players all kind of intermingle with each other, their cosmic dance. And then we're going to expand back out into the fixed star realm. I'm going to cover hundreds of asteroids, you guys. I have already made a huge list of asteroids with all of these different sections of topics, whether it be the divine feminine, all of the Arthurian archetypes, a huge list of conspiratorial asteroids CERN and Rockefeller and all kinds of things. So I'm gonna have a lot of resources, and then we're gonna expand out to the fixed stars and the black holes and deep space and really explore that astrological perspective. And then we're going to put it all together. We're going to really explore the interpretation techniques, the art of continued exploration, and continuing to expand on these archetypes and dive into these concepts for yourself, and the how to go about decoding a chart. So if you guys are interested in this, there's a link down below to check out a little bit more of the information. And if you have any questions, you can, Elizabeth says, I completely feel the perfectionism, procrastination. It's so bad. Oh my gosh. If you guys have any questions, you can write them down below in the comment section and I will reply. I am planning on doing a live maybe maybe the day after the solstice, maybe on the 22nd on over here to kind of explain this a little bit farther. But I would love to have you over there. And again, if this is something that sounds interesting to you, but maybe you can't afford it right now, hit me up. I am looking for note takers. Virgo placements are not a requirement, but they are preferred. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over here and we will start to dive into the slides. Oh my gosh, I have so many notes written on this one page. It's so small. I'm going to struggle trying to read this, so bear with me. I can't wear my glasses during this because the reflection off of the screen, it drives me insane. Okay. All right, so here is our thumbnail. You guys know I always like to put so much here. And I really am just so in love with this fucking image. I have used this image multiple times to reference the axis mundi, right? Which is the area of the sky where this new moon falls. This new moon falls at 26 degrees of Gemini in conjunction with the pole star, which falls at 28 degrees of Gemini. It's also conjunct the asteroid Atlantis. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here later. Now, the pole star falls in a really interesting place in our sky. It falls in alignment with where the sun transits during the summer solstice. During our period of extreme light here in the northern hemisphere or extreme darkness in the southern hemisphere. As we talk here, you're going to see how this tree, it can sometimes be like this with the pole star up at the top, and sometimes it's like this with the pole star at the bottom, and both are true. These are multiple truths manifesting simultaneously, just like the seasons here on Earth, right? We are having our longest night the same time that the southern hemisphere is having its longest day, and vice versa, right? These are truths that are happening simultaneously. This is what Gemini governs. Gemini governs multiple perspectives, multiple truths happening simultaneously, right? So the pole star not only aligns at the ending degrees of Gemini in alignment with the summer solstice sun here in the north. Everything I'm going to say is just going to be in the north. I can't say here in the north every single time. I know you guys in down under, you just know. So I guess I don't have to keep saying that. Okay, so not only does it align with the sun at the summer solstice, this period of extreme light, but it also falls in opposition to the galactic center. Now, the galactic center falls at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, in exact opposition to the pole star. Now, neither this star nor this little galaxy thing are originally on this painting. I actually can't figure out where this painting originated. There's one that is quite similar to it. This one that is from 1847. It's a painting from 1847 of the Yggdrasil, the World Tree. This is quite similar, but it looks like obviously it's a different painting. I love this one because it really represents the duality, those pillars of Gemini so beautifully, which is really where this moon is at, right? It falls in the realm of Gemini, the realm of the pillars, the realm of the split between the upper world and the underworld, between light and darkness. This is what the axis mundi represents, or the world tree. Or Gemini represents the split, the war, the divide, the duality, but yet it simultaneously represents the path back to the one, to that divine singularity within that is often symbolically represented by a world tree or a polar pillar or a mystic mountain. In this beautiful depiction, we have all of those things shown here. I put here, the sun and the moon and Atlantis are all conjunct the pole star. They sit in opposition to the galactic center. And we're going to talk about this more later, but they sit in a square to Neptune. Now, a lot of astrologers, like a fucking lot of people who I sometimes agree with, are really hating on this moon. Like, they are so afraid of this Neptune square. They're horrified. They're just like horrified by this. All they see is confusion. All they see is illusion. And what they are missing is this rainbow bridge, this beautiful trigger, this beautiful 90-degree aspect that is coming to trigger us in such a way that we make it to the top of our mystic mountain and we find that sort of path that we are seeking, right? But we have to embrace the Neptunian archetype. We have to embrace the symbolic, mystical, unseen, spiritual perspective. We have to embrace a bigger whole. We have to embrace the unknown. All things that Gemini often sometimes has issues with, right? So we're going to talk here about the Axis Mundi. Now, this is something that I have covered extensively. If you are new to this subject, if you are new to Patreon, or if you are watching this later on YouTube, because I am going to release this video later on YouTube, please, for the love of God, watch this video. I have this linked below. It's also available for free on YouTube. I dove so deep into this concept of the Axis Mundi, this opposition between the pole star and the galactic center, which is through an astrological lens represents the same symbol as this deeply esoteric concept of this middle pillar and this path towards ascension and oneness internally with the divine. And I just dove so freaking deep into a huge PDF of research, lots of which we are going to be covering in the course, plus so much more. Like, I already found a lot more and we were going to cover it here, but then I was like, wait a second, we're literally going to cover that 2 weeks from now. The first lesson of the course, so I held off. But while I was looking up images to make these slides, I came across just the Wikipedia page for the world tree, and it's really great. And so I want to kind of just read a little bit of this to you guys to give you a little background of this concept. This is that 1948 painting of the Yggdrasil, which I really love this one because it shows this base of this tree as this beautiful labyrinth, right? This like labyrinth of the unconscious, this maze that is where that sort of door, that sort of portal to the rainbow bridge that brings us to that peak enlightenment is found. It's found down in the depths, right? It's found down in the underworld. And this rainbow bridge is so symbolic of this Neptune square. It's beautiful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit about this. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. So some of you guys have probably heard me cover this before, but I was really impressed by this Wikipedia page, so let's just dive into it. All right, so the world tree is a motif present in several religions and mythologies, particularly Indo-European religions, Siberian religions, and Native American religions. The world tree is represented as a colossal tree which supports the heavens, thereby connecting the heavens, the terrestrial world, and through the roots, the underworld. It may also be strongly connected to the motif of the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, this sort of polar pillar, Mount Meru, this sort of quest to any sort of mystic mountain. It's even connected to the Holy Grail. It says, but it is the source of wisdom of the ages. I go into this extensively in the video linked below about how when you really go back to all of these ancient mythologies, the really, really, really old ones, they speak of this like polar god, of this one god that later split into the dichotomy that we see later, whether it be the twins and this sort of lunar solar dichotomy, or even in the monotheistic religions, the sort of God, Satan, God, Lucifer, good versus evil, whatever sort of split that came later. There was this essence of oneness. And when you go back to these ancient traditions, it's often represented as this tree that represents the totality of it and the split simultaneously. And this is something we're going to cover extensively in the course. You guys, I have so much on this subject. So Pacific world trees can be found in all different kinds of religions. Here's just a couple. I'm not going to read them all. It's pretty much everywhere. So general description. Scholarship states that many Eurasian mythologies share the motif of the world tree, the cosmic tree, or the eagle and serpent tree. More specifically, it shows up in Haitian, Finnish, Lithuanian, Hungarian, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Norse, Siberian, North Asian, and shamanic folklore. Very strongly tied to shamanism. It's even said to birth shamans. The world tree is often identified with the tree of life and also fulfills the role of an axis mundi. That is the center or axis of the world. Axis mundi literally translates to axis of the world. It's the center of the world, which is you everywhere that you go. You are this axis mundi. You are this center. You are this northern star. You just have to find it. And it is the people who are fearing this moon and Neptune's fog and confusion and delusion who have not found it, right? If you have found the spiritual center, if you have found this guiding northern star, then you can cross the Neptunian seas. You can dive into wonderland. You can explore the unknown without the fear of being led astray or the fear of the fog of confusion rolling in, or just the essence of fear itself, right? So it is also located in the center of the world and represents order and harmony of the cosmos. Its branches are said to reach to the skies, and its roots connect the human or the earthly world to an underworld or in a subterranean realm. It's the unconscious, right? Because of this, the tree was worshipped as a mediator between the heavens and earth. On the treetops are located the luminaries, or the stars, and heavenly bodies, along with an eagle's nest. Several species of birds perch among its branches. Humans and animals of every kind live under its branches, and near the root is the dwelling place of snakes and every sort of reptile. And I love that I associate the roots with the galactic center, which is in Ophiuchus, right? Where he is working to tame those reptiles, that serpentine unconscious force. So the bird perches atop its foliage. often a winged mythical creature that represents the heavenly realm. The eagle seems to be the most frequent bird, fulfilling the role of creator or weather deity. Its antipod is a snake or serpentine creature that crawls between the tree roots, being a symbol of the underworld. The image of the world tree is sometimes associated with conferring immortality, either by a fruit that grows on it or by a spring source located nearby. It says here, in some descriptions, this water of life may also flow from the roots of the tree. In the Norse tradition, the roots of the tree are fed by this water of life, of fates, and it's literally guarded by their version of the three fates down at the roots. That's where the three fates reside, and this beautiful well of wisdom. When they speak of this like quest towards immortality, they mean this quest towards the gnosis, that you are one with this whole, with this force of creation itself. Therefore, you never die, right? So similar motifs, the world tree has also been compared to a world pillar. It appears in traditions and functions as a separator between the earth and the skies, upholding the latter. Another representation akin to the world tree is a separate world mountain, which is literally what's on the card that I pulled for later, the vision with this mountain right there. However, in some stories, the world tree is located literally on top of the mountain. And lots of times that mountain has a cave that you must enter as well. And it speaks to like an ascension and an ascension, where you're going inward and up simultaneously. So conflict between this serpentine creature and this giant bird, you can think of this as like God and the devil, or, you know, the light and dark aspects of our consciousness. The conflict between this serpentine creature and this giant bird occurs in Eurasian mythologies. A hero kills the serpent that menaces a nest of little birds, and their mother repays the favor. Here's its connection to shamanism. Romanian historian of religion Mircea Eliade, I am pretty sure I'm butchering that, but I have a lot of their books too. In his monumental work, Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, suggested that the world tree was an important element in shamanistic worldview. Also, according to him, the giant bird hatches shamans in the branches of the world tree. So this bird is like literally giving birth to mystics and shamans within the branches of this world tree. And so this square to Neptune, the planet of psychic senses, of dreams, of visions, of spirituality, with this in mind, is so profound and so beautiful that I'm like just in awe of how magical this moon is if you have this expanded outlook on the sky. I mean, you don't even really need it. Even just Gemini, the essence of Gemini being like learning and questioning and analyzing new information, new ideas, networking, communication, with a square to Neptune. It really speaks to like taking action in order to come into deeper spiritual ideas through triggers and catalysts that force you into analysis or rest so that the message can just come through. But anyway, this is a beautiful archetypal expression of this area of the sky, right? This is the area that births shamans. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Okay, I don't want to read all this, but I just want to kind of scroll and show you how many cultures have this as part of their mythology or their pantheons, right? Like, look at this. This is American pre-Columbian cultures, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology, a whole bunch of other places, Slavic, Jewish, Christian mythology, Gnosticism, Armenian mythology, Georgian mythology, Sumerian, Iranian, Hinduism. Like, it just keeps going on and on. It's a little bit of everyone, right? And so this really speaks to like something that came before. It's interesting to me that it seems so widespread, but we really don't hear a lot about it. Like, you never hear anybody talk about the freaking pole star, and all of these ancient cultures revered it as the like god of the gods, right? The god that came before the sun god and the moon god and these other gods or archetypal expressions. All right. Definitely make sure you guys watch this. All right. So I know we're just going off on tangents. I was planning to do that anyway, so we're just going to roll with it. Let's see. I'm just going to cover the things that it says here so you can make sure I say it, because sometimes I forget and then I watch it back and I'm like, oh, I forgot to say that thing. So this moon falls in Gemini. It's a new moon. New moons are a period of new beginnings where new seeds are started, new chapters are begun. It aligns with the star that literally helps us navigate when we're out to sea, literally, and metaphorically. And so the star is aligning with any sort of intentions that we set right now to help guide us on this path through the Neptunian seas, right? Beyond the fog of Neptune to the spiritual truths that also reside in that same Piscean realm. That is, if we can activate this northern star within. And this new moon is the perfect time to do it. If you set no other intention during this moon, just setting the intention to like activate your Axis Mundi, locate your northern star, looking to see where this falls in your chart. Where is the North Star in your chart? Where is 27, 28 degrees of Gemini? What house is this in? Do you have any planets there? Do you have any planets in opposition? Do you have any planets square that point? Those are really the archetypal expressions. Those are really the archetypal players that help you to channel this northern star within your reality. For example, my Polaris, the northern star for me, 27 degrees of Gemini, falls in my 10th house of career and purpose and mission. And it falls in exact conjunction with my Chiron, the wounded healer. And I've literally become a sort of wounded healer as a career. And I'm with a focus on the freaking pole star. Like, it's just so crazy to me. And this sort of like path towards healing through this middle path, right? Through the center. So we have a lot of the essence of the mind strongly activated by this Gemini moon. But with this infusion of it with the vision, a holistic, synergistic connection to the dimension of water, which is something we'll expand on when we get to the cards and the chart. So everybody is so afraid of this Neptune square, right? Neptune is sitting in a square to the moon. And its home sign of Pisces, and everybody's like, Neptune means confusion and illusion and delusion, and so like this is not good energy. But Neptune means a lot of things. Neptune is our planet of dreams. It's our planet of the vision. It's our planet of mysticism and psychic senses and spirituality. Yes, it governs our fears, many of which will be highlighted during this time. Yes, it governs this sort of hermit energy and this need to retreat. Yes, it governs the realm of escapism and confusion and illusion and delusion. But if you have your spiritual center Neptune ain't got shit on you, right? Other than plugging you in to those innate psychic senses. All right, so Neptune is over in Pisces, right? The realm of the fish. And you guys have probably heard me talk about Pisces before and how archetypally and symbolically it's represented by the two fish, right? The two fish represent pretty much the same thing as these two pillars of Gemini and the two tops of this world tree. They represent the light and the dark. They represent the realm of duality. One is swimming this way, up, one is swimming down. One represents the light, one represents the dark. And they both are a little confused because they're only seeing one side of the story. Like, think about this dude over here. He's only looking at the world from this direction. He can only see this half of the mountain. He can't see anything on this other side. This dude over here, we should call her she and him a dude, but this dude over here, same thing. He can only see one half of the mountain. And so they're confused. They only have one side of the story. And if you choose one side of this narrative, Gemini's main lesson is that there's always another side to the story, right? I date a Gemini, and his favorite fucking thing is playing the devil's advocate, where I will, whatever I say, just because there's another side of that story, even if he doesn't agree with that side of the story, he will always make sure to state it so that you know that that is also a possibility. Like, Gemini just wants you to understand that there is another side of the story, right? And so there's these two fish, and they're confused, and they're really trying to seek each other and see eye to eye. Now, the Piscean archetype, where Neptune is right now, its home sign, is not just these two fish, but it's these two fish that are connected by a golden thread, much like the axis mundi, right? It's connected by a golden thread. And that golden thread has a knot in the middle that represents the 0 point between these two extremes. So both this moon, this archetypal expression of the axis mundi, represents a split, a war, a divide, but a path towards harmony, a path towards singularity, a path that guides us on our journey. Neptune over in Pisces has that same energy to it. Yes, it's in Pisces, which is confusing because it's where we merge with the Akashic whole. It's where everything melds into each other. It's the archetypal, unseen, mystical dimension, where both these fish are swimming in two different directions, looking at two different sides of the coin on their quest towards that golden thread, on that quest towards that knot in the middle, which all can be represented here if we can expand our lens to incorporate a more expanded perspective of these archetypes, which is going to be a key theme of my course. Is like, Neptune doesn't just mean something because someone says it means something. Yeah, it means that thing, but it also can mean so many other things. And so it's about expanding our perspective beyond. I want us all to look at the cosmos in a completely different way than we looked at when we started, including myself. I have a feeling I'm going to learn so much throughout the compiling of all of this. Okay. So before we get into the chart, I want to kind of touch a little bit on Atlantis, right? So not only do we have the sun and moon conjunct the pole star, but the asteroid Atlantis is also here as well. We've touched on Atlantis extensively. There's a whole video linked down below. Please watch that one as well. It's one of my other videos that I'm the most proud of. It's linked down below, a rabbit hole that I did extensively on Atlantis. If you haven't watched that, please do. What was I saying? So Atlantis is also conjunct the pole star. So we've covered this topic extensively. I have a huge playlist on YouTube available with like hundreds of videos and documentaries on Atlantis. I have tons of books on Atlantis. And my clients always ask me, what do you recommend, Dolly? What do you recommend um, books on Atlantis, and I'm like, literally look over at like 3 shelves of books, and I'm like, none of those. Like, literally none of those, because they all have this sort of like fixed narrative to them, and they all contradict each other. But then, back during the Neptune Saturn conjunction, both Neptune and Saturn are still here in Pisces, but when they conjunct in Pisces, I got this book from the library bookstore called the Atlantis Encyclopedia, and I freaking love this book because it doesn't have any sort of like biased viewpoint. It's just an accumulation of all different entries in alphabetical order of cultures across the world and all of their flood myths and just everything connected to not just Atlantis, but like any sort of like deluge or pre-Diluvian culture or mythology, and it's really great. So every once in a while, I just flip it open. Every once in a while, when there's like an Atlantis aspect, I flip it open to a random page, and I'm like, okay, give me some new Atlantean shit, right? And so I flipped it open, and it landed on this page, which, you guys, is just so perfect for this moon. It's crazy. So this is the entry on the Law of One. This is based upon Edgar Cayce's channelings. And I love this because I have really noticed a lot of people whose even work I really value, like, or research I value, like The Dark Journalist or Gigi Young, have really started to gravitate towards these fixed belief systems, whether it be the channelings of Edgar Cayce, Rudolf Steiner, Madame Blavatsky, as just being total fact. You know what I mean? Not as just one interpretation, while there could be others, but it's just being a total fact. And what's so hilarious to me is that they also seem to have perhaps not even fully read the literature, because they have fallen onto one side of this dichotomy and are perpetuating this war, right? And this little entry here really does a really great job of explaining about the duality and how it perpetuates itself, right? Breaking down through the lens of Edgar Cayce's channelings on Atlantis and the Emilian Belial group. So according to Edgar Cayce, this monotheistic cult, the cult of the Law of One, arose in Atlantis as a reaction to the followers of Belial, who made a religion of materialism, right? The Belials are kind of like the transhumanists of Cayce's Atlantis. They were really focused on like scientific materialism. And Rudolf Steiner refers to it as like that Ahrimanic expression, right? Really focused on scientific materialism. So tenets of the Law of One included social service for the less fortunate, acts of charity, abstinence, and humility. Although more of a social service creed than a theology with any original spiritual ideas, Cayce regarded it as the forerunner of Christianity. In any case, both the Law of One and its opposite, number in the followers of Belial, were symptoms of the overall decline of Atlantean civilization, right? This was that fall from that source of singularity into that dichotomy, into that duality. In order to develop the masculine mind, ultimately. We go into that in the Atlantis video, link down below. So this was symptoms of the overall decline of Atlantean civilization during its final phase, when the former quest for enlightenment degenerated into a narrow-minded religious struggle for ascendancy. The followers of Belial finally triumphed politically, only to have the technology they idolized blow up in their faces. Both sides were intolerant of opposing views, and together they contributed, despite their intense mutual animosity, to the social chaos of Atlantis in its later days. We see the same thing happening right now. We see this like rise of like right-wing Christianity in the face of this rise of like deep scientific materialism. We see this sort of choosing of sides, both of which are deeply intolerant to opposing views, and neither of which are trying to find a middle, neither of which can understand that simultaneously multiple truths can exist. And so it's interesting that we have this lunation aligning with the pole star and the asteroid Atlantis, which is where this divide really probably started to kick off. Was in a pre-Diluvian world, and we're really still in the karmic fallout of this split, of this war. And you see a lot of people in the New Age realm, choosing this one side and projecting a lot onto an outside force, right? If you choose one side of a dichotomy, you always have an adversary. You're always being hunted. You're always at war. You're never at rest. You've never found that northern star. There's always some sort of outside force seeking harm against you, right? Yeah, this is so wild how accurately this describes right now, Elizabeth. And it is so wild how perfect it is for both a Gemini moon, both sides of the story, and a Gemini moon that aligns with its axis Mundi, where we can find the middle. We really can. We can find it. Okay, so before we get into the chart, we're doing this like way different this time, you guys. Here's another beautiful depiction of the axis Mundi, where the roots again are in a sort of a labyrinth, right? And this is an actual labyrinth, not a maze. I always like to point out that you can lose yourself in a maze, but you find yourself in a labyrinth, because a labyrinth only has one way in and one way out. And if you just keep going, you make it to the middle. If you just keep going and you don't stop, you make it to the middle. Now, a maze is different, but a labyrinth of our subconscious, if we just keep going, we're going to make it to the middle. We've got the pole star up at the top, and then of course the celestial realm. Okay, so first I want you guys to go over to astro.com, and I want you to enter in these numbers into your chart, and I want you to look and see where a couple asteroids are in your chart. These are a couple of the asteroids we're going to cover in the course. We're literally going to cover, I already have like 130 something asteroids compiled on a list, and I'm not done yet. We're going to cover a lot of asteroids. Here's a couple of them. These are the asteroid Olympus, the asteroid Atlantis, the asteroid Paradise, and the asteroid Eden, all of which are associated with this sort of axis Mundi, right? This sort of paradise that perhaps has fallen. We have, Eden, of course. We were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because of a tree. Atlantis fell, right? Olympus has a lot to do with the ascension up that spiritual mountain. This is where Psyche's mythology ends. Psyche being the first human in Greek mythology to ever ascend from humanhood to godhood, getting to live on Mount Olympus and drink the drink of immortality. It's always a mountain or a tree. So you want to look and see where these asteroids are in your chart. And these are, I put these asteroids in expecting to see them aspecting the moon, and then of course they all did, like so much so. Olympus is sitting in opposition to Neptune, over in Virgo, in a square to both the sun and the moon. Atlantis is conjunct the sun and the moon. Paradise is conjunct Saturn over in Pisces in a square to Mercury, and Eden is conjunct Chiron, harmoniously aspecting Mercury and Venus and Mars. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the chart. But I want you to look and see where these are in your own chart. Going over to astro.com, which is really the best place to find these asteroids. You can look them up at the list, or you can just write these numbers. These are the numbers. Put them in your chart and look and see where they are in your chart. These are your paths towards this spiritual center, right? Looking to see what house, what planet maybe these might be in conjunction to. Might help you to understand where this quest falls for you. Where is the mountain? Where is the paradise? Where can you find these in your reality? What house? What planets might be there? If you find them and you want to put them maybe in the chat, I'll see what comes to mind, but we're going to expand on this when we get to the chart. But they're all aspecting this chart very strongly, like very strongly. Okay. All right, so now is when you want to really make sure that you get, oh, here, I'll just show you where they are. I forgot. I copied and pasted the thing. So look, Olympus is in a exact T-square with Neptune and the moon. So the mountain is literally there, and it's in Virgo. And so climbing up that mountain, in order to get to the top of that, we have to make it through the realm of Virgo. So Virgo wants us to learn. Virgo wants us to study. Virgo wants us to analyze. Virgo wants us to heal. Virgo wants us to find a holistic balance between our mind, body, spirit, right? Our soul, our connection to the totality of it all, our path towards service and duty and responsibilities. This is what Virgo wants of us. Saturn is making some aspects here too, who also kind of wants us to do that. The Saturn aspects I think are beautiful, and Gemini fucking needs them, but we'll get there a little bit later. Paradise is conjunct Saturn, so part of that path towards paradise comes through Saturn. Saturn is sitting in a square to Mercury and Gemini. Mercury and Gemini is fucking scattered. Mercury and Gemini is just, it's very ADD energy. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, all over the place, very eclectic and not focused at all. Not focused on any one goal or a mission. Saturn really comes with that square to be like, okay, focus on this. Now would probably be a really great time to mention that astrologically, through fixed star astrology, Bernadette Brady says that the pole star, which is conjunct this new moon. So this pole star is conjunct whatever intentions, whatever new beginnings, whatever seeds you plant at this moon, the pole star is in alignment with that. And astrologically, Polaris is associated with pathfinding, the potential to really seek and find your path. It's associated with emotional and nurturing mission. It's a pioneer. When it's in alignment with the sun, it's said to bring a strong focus, a devotion to a single passion, able to maintain focus on a single goal despite distractions and obstructions. Gemini, Mercury needs this. It needs not only Saturn, who wants us to do the work. It wants us to focus and do the work in order to build some sort of foundation that will last. It's in Pisces, so it's a spiritual, mystical foundation, right? And this foundation will help us to find our inner paradise. Now, the problem is that it's also conjunct the moon, and astrologically it says that Polaris can bring, when in aspect to the moon, can bring an obsession with the goal. So of course we'll need that balance, right? That Gemini is seeking the pillars, seeking that balance. Okay, so the moon's conjunct Atlantis, Saturn's conjunct Paradise, Chiron is conjunct Eden. It's conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. A lot of our wounds stem from our being freaking exiled from this state of bliss and oneness and thrown into this evolutionary school of a dualistic dichotomy, right? A lot of our wounds and our traumas stem from that. Now, Chiron is currently in Aries. And so a lot of these are wounds that revolve around our identity, our persona, our primal life force energy, our animalistic instincts, right? Our serpent, our life force. That spark of life, of consciousness that transpires at that tree, right? So the asteroid Eden is conjunct Chiron, and so it's the wounds of this time before, a time of perfection that fell. And in order for us to develop the two sides to their fullest, so that we can then come back into alignment. Now, Chiron is sitting in a trine to the Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. So we have Venus and Mars, the lovers, much like, I don't know, Eve and Adam. In Leo, the sign of romance and passion and desire, and even children, and our creative self-expression, and just like our passionate drive. Is sitting in a trine with Chiron, our wounds that stem into the Garden of Eden itself. This period of balance. Many of these mythologies speak of a time of harmony. Atlantis spoke of a golden age, this period of balance and harmony and oneness. And then eventually we fell into consciousness and a split transpired, right? The Garden of Eden tells a similar story. And Chiron is there with the wounds and the wisdom. The wounds of this time, but also the wisdom that transpired through that split, that helped us to develop ourself, helped us to know thyself, realize we were naked, and traverse on our own personal quest back to divinity itself, right? So looking to see where these fall in your chart might help you to see your paths towards paradise, or this quest towards a sacred center, right? Okay. I have so many things here. We're going to, okay, so now is when what time is it, you guys? Okay, it's only been an hour. So now is when you're going to want to pull your natal chart, and you're going to want to look and see where some things are. You want to first and foremost look and see, where is Gemini? What house does Gemini fall in? For me, it is, of course, like I said before, my career. So it's my 10th house of career, ambition, success, mission. This also has a connection to like authority figures, and the father. I have my Chiron there. This moon is actually in exact conjunction to my Chiron. And so while a lot of new beginnings are transpiring in my realm of career and mission and success, this is all happening on top of my Chiron, so my essence of the wounded healer. And so a lot of my wounds are rising to the surface as well. Wounds of the mind, Gemini, that span into my early childhood education, which is also something Gemini governs, that were told me by authority figures about my intellectual abilities that were just not even remotely true. That is something that I have tried to work throughout my life in order to, now use my mind every day for a living. I probably use more brain power in a day than most people use in probably an entire year. So this is part of that chironic wound that I am working through. The wounds of the mind, in order to step into my mission and career from this sort of healer perspective, because of the wisdom that I alchemized through those same wounds of the mind. Would have never ended up here if I didn't have to fucking heal myself first, that's Chiron, right? So looking to see where Gemini falls for you. If you're an Aries rising, it will be in your first house. If you're any other rising sign, it is going to be in another house. This is the area of your life where not only the pole star falls, and so you really can have that sort of guiding light. My Chiron aligns exactly with the pole star. It's not only where you can find that sort of guiding light on your path, that sort of path towards singularity, but this is also where this new moon is starting a new chapter. Seeds are being planted. New beginnings are just starting to transpire that will culminate 6 months from now when we have the Gemini full moon in the same house. And so looking to see what house this falls in, Google it. This is such a small summary. We're going to cover the houses extensively in my course. And there'll be a PDF of that information as well when it comes time to it. Looking to see where Gemini falls, this is where you can really start a lot of new things that revolve around information, things that revolve around ideas, things that revolve around communication, networking, and that are sparked and initiated from a spiritual perspective because of the Neptune square. So you want to look and see, do you have any planets near 26 degrees of any of the mutable signs? Those are Sagittarius or Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces. If you have any planets near 26 degrees of these signs, they are either in conjunction to the moon and the pole star, in opposition to the moon and conjunct the galactic center, or in a square to the moon conjunct Neptune, or in a square to the moon conjunct the asteroid Ceres, the Earth goddess, the Earth mother, but we'll get there in a second. So if you have any planets near 26 degrees of these mutable signs, those are the planets that are most strongly aspected. If you have any planets near 26 degrees of the air signs, so if you have any planets near 26 degrees of Aquarius or Libra, then those are in a trine to this moon. And so it's really like free flowing, harmonious energy coming to help fuel your manifestation at this time. All right, let's talk a little bit about Gemini. I've got some notes here too. All right, so Gemini is one of the 4 mutable signs. These are the 4 mutable signs. They are the signs responsible for the shifting from the end of a season into the beginning of a new season. They are mutable. They are shifting. They change us into what's next. And so they're very fluid and adaptable. Gemini being one of the most fluid and adaptable of them all because it has so many different personalities. Gemini is the air sign of this 4 mutable signs. And so it is associated with the mind. It is associated with communication and information. While it represents duality and the twins, it is of the masculine polarity because it is an air sign. So it represents the split, the war, the divide, the duality, but it manifests through a conscious masculine perspective. Now, the Gemini twins here are often seen as like twin brothers, but if you go back far enough, you'll see them as a brother and a sister, much like Apollo and Artemis, a twin brother and sister. But the traditional twins are Castor and Pollux, and they are said to have been born from the cosmic egg. So they represent like duality, extreme polarity, but they represent this extreme polarity having come from this essence of oneness, this essence of singularity, the cosmic egg that birthed it all, the essence of creation itself, right? So it speaks to this dualistic realm having come from some sort of mutual place. So, Gemini's ruling planet is Mercury, and Mercury is actually at home in Gemini at the time of this lunation, in a tight aspect to Saturn, a square to Saturn. So this mercurial energy is very prevalent. Now, Mercury and Gemini can kind of be all over the place, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and never fully bringing anything into structure. Like, okay, Eddie's Gemini. His favorite line to me, babe, I have $1 million idea. And then he will like spew some shit out of his mouth, and it will be like a good ass idea. Like, it will be like a legitimate $1 million idea, and it will just come and go, and it will never come to fruition. If I had even like a quarter for every time he had a brilliant idea, like, I'd be able to pay like my phone bill or something, you know? Like, he's got a lot of these ideas, but they can never be like solidified. They can never come to fruition. Although he can here, always, he'll do that here and there. His Taurus placements help a lot with that. But the brilliant mind, the ideas, they come and go, and they can be fleeting. They can be scattered. And so I love that the square to Saturn is really coming with the tension needed for Mercury to like buckle down and take action in order to build something that will last. And it's in Pisces, so it's something that will last, that is rooted in this spiritual dimension, this like higher spiritual plane that sometimes Gemini has a hard time plugging into. It has a really easy time seeing both sides of the narrative of like this logical, analytical reality, but has a hard time getting out of its head and into its heart and its soul, right? But that's what the Neptune square is there for, and that's why I love it. Now, the ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury, and like I said, it's at home right now. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. He's literally the relayer of information. He's responsible for the conveying of information between our mortal, logical, analytical mind and the realm of the gods, the celestial space, right? He is the bringer of consciousness and self-awareness. He's the hermaphrodite. He is not the essence of the one, right? And he's not this split of the twins. He is the merger of them two back together, where they are both still represented, but yet they have found a way back to a connection with the one beyond the split. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Mercury is the alchemist, because he alchemizes these two things together, the two sides of our brain, the two hemispheres. He also can be a trickster, the planet of communication, of analytical thought, the rational mind, the planet of learning, of thinking, of mental frequency, of both wisdom and self-obtained knowledge through inquiry. This is all energy that's coming through very strongly at this moon. And so if there are themes here that are coming up for you, these are really great things to set intentions around, you know, starting new chapters when it comes to learning and knowledge and communicating and that path towards that ascended consciousness. So traditionally, Gemini governs the third house. This is energy we all will be feeling somewhat. If Aries falls in your first house, then then this moon falls in your third house. But if you are any rising sun other than Aries, Gemini is going to fall in a different house. And so you'll be merging these two kind of energies together, right? So this is the house of the mind, communication, school years, learning, like remedial learning, like reading, writing, arithmetic, like getting down to basics. Siblings, our immediate environment, short travel, neighbors, language, and the flow of information. So this is what's really funneling in through whatever house Gemini may fall in for you. For me, it's my 10th house of career, purpose. Some Gemini-esque traits is this energy is very versatile and adaptable and intellectual. It's witty, it's charming, it's logical, often overly logical. And so that Neptune trigger comes to help us get out of our fucking head and embrace that mystical, unseen, archetypal, symbolic dimension that we can't be overly literal about, or we miss the magic altogether, right? This energy is energetic and spontaneous. It's lively and chatty and amusing and changeable, dualistic, restless, cunning, inquisitive, but it can be inconsistent. So that's why I love the Saturn square, because it helps us, forces us to be consistent through some sort of structure. For me, it's of course the dates are set in place. They're there. I'll show up and I'll do it. You know what I mean? That's the structure that came through in order to structure my mercurial mind that's a little all over the place. In the world, Gemini governs trade, distribution of goods, all forms of communication and information, education, media, a country's infrastructure, and its transportation system. And here are some herbs that are associated with Gemini. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the chart. Well, let me just get some of these notes out of the way, and then we'll get into the chart, because I want to get this book out of my way. All right, what do I got here? So Gemini represents networking, collaboration, new ideas, and information. Being as though this moon is in a square to Neptune, this new ideas, this information must come through a spiritual lens, and it must be initiated through spiritual intention, right? Neptune has to be addressed here. So this is thinking and learning from an archetypal, symbolic, multidimensional perspective. Neptune, especially while in Pisces, represents our intuition, our psychic development, our spiritual attunement. It literally represents manifestation and magic, the vision. And it's in a beautiful place. I love it. I don't see why people hate this moon so much. I think it's great. I want to point out something about squares, okay? So I've seen this a lot, like a fucking lot, and that's one of the reasons why I used black lines here instead of red, because I even think like the red lines for squares and harsh aspects just give people this energy of like, oh, this is bad. This is a hard, harsh, negative, challenging aspect, and it's just fucking bullshit. If we did not have squares, we literally could never act or manifest anything into being. I'm gonna really quickly like kind of lay this out for you, and you'll just be like, oh, of course, it makes so much sense. Let me see, Elizabeth. I have to head to bed, and we'll finish this in the morning. This has been so amazing, and it's hitting so well and aligns with the reading you gave me too. Not me looking at a foundational astrology course and planning to sign up for 2 this weekend. The accuracy. Oh, that sounds awesome. Yes, that's perfect. Okay, so let's talk about squares. This 90-degree aspect. You guys have heard me talk about this a lot. This is a 90-degree aspect that manifests things into being. And it manifests it through needed tension. Tension that brings needed action, right? I wrote here, I'm just going to read my notes. I wrote here, people fear squares. Not just because of their red lines, But they fear squares because they fear action. You can't have the culmination, the harvest, the illumination of an opposition or a full moon without the tension, conflict, and triggering action of the square. Okay, so whenever we have a conjunction between planets, a moon is a really great example to use. Whenever we have the sun and moon conjunct each other, we have a couple of different cycles kick off. One, we have a 6-month cycle where we have a story start to build over the next 6 months that also takes the same narrative, but it's harder to kind of see play out in the sky. And then we also have a sort of narrative play out over the next 28 days, which perfectly represents the square and how important the square is, right? So at a conjunction, whether it be the sun conjunct Mercury, Jupiter conjunct the North Node, whatever it is, any sort of conjunction. When a conjunction happens, a new story begins, a new chapter begins, new seeds are planted, but they were like literally just planted. They're not sprouting, nothing is happening yet. At a conjunction, new seeds are planted. Now, once this, whatever the faster transiting planet is, gets to a square aspect, this happens halfway between a moon cycle. This is the half moon. Once the faster transiting planet gets to a square aspect, this is the aspect that forces action. This is the action that then will transpire into the culmination that will happen at an opposition. So in this case, it will be the full moon 2 weeks from now. When we have the full moon 2 weeks from now, we'll be at a culmination, a reward, a harvest, an illumination. But we won't be able to actually reap that reward, partake in that illumination, seek that culmination if we didn't take action at the square. This goes for every single conjunction, right? Anytime we have, like when we have our Saturn return and Saturn conjuncts Saturn, that starts a new Saturn cycle. When we have our Saturn square and Saturn squares our Saturn, actions are taken. Actions are taken that revolve around our karmic destiny, revolve around the lessons we came here to learn and the things we came here to build. It has to do with boundaries and limitation. If we take the actions that we're being asked to take when Saturn is in opposition to our Saturn, this is that peak of that lesson. This is that illumination. This is that culmination. This is the peak of that story, right? Then when we have our second square, when Saturn squares Saturn again, this is where we're taking actions yet again, but these are more about endings. This is in order to clean up whatever it is to prepare for our new Saturn cycle once it conjuncts Saturn again. So hopefully that makes sense. Squares are so important. Nothing can manifest into physicality without a square. It's seated at a conjunction. It comes to its fruition at an opposition, but the actions are taken during a square. And right now, the actions that we're being asked to take revolve around this unseen, mystical, spiritual dimension. Okay? So I have some notes here. Let's talk about some of this stuff here. Get it out of the way. All right, so we've already talked about how the sun and moon are in Gemini, and we're really starting this new chapter. This chapter aligns with the pole star, that essence that will help us focus on a goal, find our path, and navigate this Neptunian fog to our source of singularity within this dualistic dichotomy of us versus them, right? And it's also aligned with Atlantis. And so this split, this war, this divide, but this path towards union, this multi-dimensional sides of the story really span into a pre-Diluvian narrative. A pre-Diluvian narrative that housed both a golden age and a fall from grace, right? Now, this area of the sky is so profound. It is the area of the sky that is our solstice point, right? The solstice point is technically here at 0 degrees of Cancer. And that marks the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the summer hemisphere. You know, sometimes we have the pole star here at the top, you know, in this depiction. But here in the zodiac, the pole star falls here at the bottom of the chart with the galactic center up at the top. The pole star is found down by the IC, which is our innermost world, our innermost self. This northern star is found deep within the self. That galactic center is more represented out in the outer world. So I have some notes I just want to kind of read here. Gemini is, of course, the twins, and they're both here right now. We have the sun and moon, Apollo and Artemis, this lunar solar dichotomy, both aligned with the pole star. So we have both sides of the duality aligned with the singularity, aligned with Atlantis. So if you look at Atlantis, can I zoom in here? Yes. Okay, so if you look at the glyph of Atlantis, I'm always afraid to do that because my website, my thing will glitch, but it seemed like it worked good. So if you look at the glyph of Atlantis, it literally looks like a middle pillar with two little, it's like a little dash with a dash. So they look like this, little T's on either side. It's kind of hard to see there. But it looks like little T's on either side. So it looks like two little pillars and then this big middle pillar in the middle. So even in the symbolism of the glyph of Atlantis speaks to its trajectory in consciousness from this peak golden age of oneness and harmony and into the development of that split in order to really develop both sides of the coin and find our way back to the middle. So I love that both of the twins, right, the sun and the moon, are both here in Gemini, that realm of duality, but aligned with the pole star, really seeking harmony. The asteroid Artemis is also here. She's at 28 degrees. She is the goddess of the moon. And I love that because I feel like it helps balance out the little slight polarization into the masculine archetypal expression. Because like I said earlier, even though Gemini represents the duality, it represents both sides represents these two pillars. It is of a masculine polarity because it is an air sign, and so it is associated with the mind and consciousness and that projecting masculine force. So even though we have the sun and moon both here balancing, aligned with the pole star, it's still polarized into the masculine expression, but Artemis is here, the goddess of the moon. So I feel like it comes and helps to balance it out somewhat. So this northern star is found in our innermost world. It's at the depths of our logical, analytical mind, and it's inching its way closer and closer and closer into Cancer, where it will really then enter our internal, subconscious, inner reality. So the northern star, this Polaris that aligns with this moon, is our inner light. It is, of course, a star, and so it's our conscious guide. It's associated with this conscious guiding force, this guiding light, while the galactic center, which sits in opposition to it, is a black hole. It's associated with, it aligns with the sun during the winter solstice, our periods of extreme darkness. It itself is a black hole, and so it is more associated with this unconscious guiding spiritual force. It's in Sagittarius, which governs the outer spiritual dimension, our quest towards our higher mind. And what does it say? Our quest towards our higher mind. And this higher mind, this expanded perspective that Sagittarius is on a quest for, is also found in the depths of the self, because this is the peak of winter. This is where we are really going into our inner reality, to the darker part of our consciousness here in the Northern Hemisphere. It flip-flops. And I even wrote here that, you know, these spiritual poles, they really shift throughout the year. Not really, but symbolically. They shift throughout the year, where, you know, sometimes we're really seeking this and sometimes we're really seeking this, all while seeking this balance between. Sometimes the focus is way more on opening that galactic space in order to let in the vastness. And right now the focus is really on finding that spiritual center within and realizing that the vastness is within you. And you don't have to seek outwardly, which sometimes Sagittarius can. It's a quest into the great unknown. This is a quest back to the one. We talked in the last video about how Sagittarius is pulling its arrow and it's shooting it towards some sort of bullseye. And that bullseye is often represented, can often be symbolically connected to the great attractor, which falls smack dab in the middle of Sagittarius. We talked about this in the last video, the center point of 100,000 galaxies, and or the galactic center, which is really something we're working to unlock in this area. But right now, this moon is a time to set intentions around finding the spiritual center deep within yourself, as opposed to any sort of outside force. And then knowing that the spiritual center will help keep you grounded and anchored and on your path while you traverse the great unknown, right? Okay, so I have so much notes here. I have to just kind of see what we got here. The quest, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this new moon is in a square to Neptune. This square everybody's so afraid of, but I think is fucking rad. Neptune, to me, is a perfect depiction of this portal to this rainbow bridge that can help transport us through these worlds, right? It's a connection to both the rainbow bridge and the labyrinth of the unconscious. It is really revealing lots of unconscious forces within the unseen spiritual dimension, because it is conjunct the asteroid Pandora. So Pandora has a lot to do with, so Pandora is one of those myths that's very misunderstood. She is a lot like Eve, where she's blamed for everything being shitty. They love to blame women for this. But at the point in Greek mythology where they handed Pandora that box, the gods, and they said, listen, setting her up for failure, from premeditatedly setting her up for failure, knowing she would open the box, the wanting to blame her for all of their shadows ultimately. They hand her the box and like, yo, don't open the box. And she's like, cool, checks out. And then she opens the box, right? Well, at this point in Greek mythology where Pandora opens the box and lets out all of life's horrors, like murder and greed and rape and like all of these horrible things out of the box, all of the things that she supposedly let out of the box already existed. Not only did they already exist, but the gods themselves were promoting many of these horrors, right? So what did Pandora do? We cannot blame her for opening this box and letting all of these things out, because these things already existed in our reality. What she did was she let them out of captivity. This Piscean dimension, especially with Saturn there, really does speak to captivity. Captivity within our own unconscious forces, collectively, the collective unconscious. So she let these shadows, these repressed parts of our self and our human existence out for us to see and address. So all of these things started flying out of the box, and she was like, oh fuck, what did I do? And so she freaked out and she closed the box. And when she did that, she trapped something in there, something that was at the bottom on top of all of life's horrors that we couldn't even get to if she didn't open the box. And what she trapped in there was hope. Hope was at the bottom of the box, and we couldn't get to it unless she let it out for us to see all of the things we need to work through. So this Neptune square is really revealing a lot of unconscious forces that manifest not just within your own unconscious, but the collective unconscious and the unseen spiritual dimensions, like both sides of the fish and that golden thread, right? This is the realm of fears and delusions. And if we do not have a spiritual center, we can definitely fall into this. Escapism, fears, delusions. This is not a moon to partake in any sort of means to alter your state of consciousness. This is not a moon to do any sort of like plant medicine or sacred ceremony other than like meditation and visualization and things like that, because we can really get thrown into that chaotic realm. It's a Gemini moon. This is a new chapter when it comes to our mind, our thinking, analyzing, questioning, learning mind. And we want to have our wits about us. Saturn square really does come help to bring some wits to us as well, but wits rooted in, because the Saturn square is over here in Cancer, rooted in a spiritual dimension. So this Neptune square brings an essence of fantasy, and both the beauty and the horrors of this reality can be exposed. It brings an essence of spiritual conflict, but it's spiritual conflict that has a purpose. It can also bring an essence of like a hermit with a mission. Like I'm retreating into my cave so that I can make it up to my mountain, right? Okay, we talked about this. Okay, so not only do we have a square to Neptune in Pisces, which is conjunct Pandora, but we also have a square to the asteroid Ceres. So Ceres is Leslie says, hello, Gemini here. I think this aspects my chart a lot. I also have Pisces and Saturn. Whoop, whoop. Saturn return. This retrograde is going to be really significant for you. We're going to get here in a second. Okay, so not only is this moon conjunct Atlantis and the pole star, opposite the galactic center, activating this axis mundi, with a trigger from Neptune over here, activating this rainbow bridge, but it's also in a square to the asteroid Ceres, which is the biggest asteroid in the asteroid belt. It's also conjunct the asteroid Demeter. So Demeter and Ceres are literally the same deity. The only reason I have them both in here is because Ceres is the biggest asteroid in the asteroid belt, and she was like one of the first one named, and so of course I have to have her in there. But I like the archetype of Demeter better. Even though the stories are the same, I just always call her Demeter. So I have to have them both here. I don't know. But anyway, they are both here. They are also both conjunct the super galactic center. So the super galactic center is always in a square to the galactic center. It falls here at cardinal, the beginning of cardinal Libra, while the galactic center falls at the end of mutable Sagittarius, and they are in a square. So not only is this moon in a conjunction to the sun, in a square to Neptune, which most astrologers see, but if you look at an expanded perspective, it's also in opposition to the center of our motherfucking galaxy, in conjunction to the center star that all the stars rotate from Earth's perspective, and in a square to the super galactic center, the black hole that this galaxy and 130 galaxies all rotate around. This is a profoundly cosmic, spiritually aligned, psychically activating moon that you should definitely capitalize on, and do not listen to any posts that tell you not to. But what you initiate has to come from a place of learning, expanding your mind, questioning, analyzing, looking at multiple sides of the story from a deeply spiritual perspective. So the square to Sirius is beautiful because it brings in this essence of Earth, right? So it was the only thing we were missing in this axis mundi. We have the pillars of Gemini, this duality. We have the pole star aligned with the sun, the moon, Atlantis. We have that in opposition to the galactic center, representing the upper world and the underworld, right? Over here with Ophiuchus and his serpent. We have Neptune over here in Pisces, triggering this portal that opens up this rainbow bridge to the peak of our mystical mountain, to that which we are seeking on this hero's journey, on a spiritual quest, our road to our holy grail. And then in a square to this moon, we also have the asteroid Ceres and Demeter, which represent the Earth Mother. She is associated with the seasons. This axis here is the axis of the seasons. This is where our seasons are. This is where the equinoxes, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. This is where the fall equinox is. This is where the summer solstice is. This is where the winter solstice is. Vice versa. If you're down under, flip this around. If you're down under. She represents our connection to the divinity and physicality, the shifting of the seasons, our connection to nature, the land, the mother, childbirth, divinity within physicality. And she's in Virgo right now, which represents that same thing in opposition to Neptune in Pisces. Virgo is on a spiritual quest too, but her spiritual quest is much more represented by the physical dimension as opposed to the etheric dimension, Pisces, its opposition. This is a quest of service. This is a quest of healing. This is a quest of learning and analyzing information. This is a quest that unites the mind, body, soul, much like the axis mundi. And so I fucking love this. Now this is a T square. This is a grand cross, a grand mutable cross. And so it's shifting, it's alchemizing, and it's forcing us to allow all of these archetypal players a seat at the table in order for that which we start at this lunation to come to its full manifestation, right? We need a little bit of all of these, looking to see what houses these are as well, and seeking to find some sort of balance, equilibrium between them all. But action will definitely need to be taken, and it's action around spirituality, it's action around creativity, it's action around dreams and inspiration that will ultimately trigger us during this time. Okay, so a couple more notes. So Sagittarius, the opposition to Gemini, Sagittarius shoots its arrow, right? And what this arrow is ultimately looking for, although it doesn't actually know this when it shoots it, because it just shoots it into the great unknown in order to expand its philosophical perspective and reach out into those like higher mental fields. But what it's ultimately searching for is this axis mundi, right? It's working, and Ophiuchus, who's also here in this part of the sky, is working to unlock this galactic center and the great attractor, right? And this axis mundi, which this new moon is aligned with, is always triggered by Pisces. It's square, right? This axis mundi is always triggered by whatever sign sits in a square to it. In this case, it's Pisces and Virgo. So we are initiated and triggered in order to activate this pillar within us through the spiritual, unseen, mystical, archetypal, symbolic dimension, and this quest towards service to something profound. So Neptune, Pisces, and particularly right now with Neptune in Pisces, is the trigger. It's the square that is activating this axis mundi. Neptune is currently in an exact square with the galactic center and the pole star. It is literally, regardless of if the sun and moon were here right now, it is activating this pillar within us all. And right now, this moon is seeding it, right? So Neptune triggers us. The arrow is shooting. The Sagittarius arrow is shooting, looking for something, right? Some sort of spiritual attainment. This is triggered by Pisces and the spiritual dimension, right? The unconscious, these altered states of consciousness, the great Akashic field, dreams and inspiration. It's also triggered through analysis and data collection and healing and holistic balance between mind, body, soul. This is all Virgoian things, right? Now, Gemini represents the mind, right? It's the mind that questions. It's associated with information and learning, questioning. It's the logical mind. And this logical mind must finally accept that there is so much more. And right now we're being triggered by that so much more. This mind must accept this for a full activation to take place, while being rooted in the realm of healing, Virgo, in the earth, Virgo, Ceres, Demeter, right? This grounded, holistic synergy between mind, body, soul, and the great beyond, which is truly everywhere, right? This vastness of it all, we're seeking it so much externally. The lesson of the pole star, the lesson of this lunation is that the great beyond is within you, and that you are always at the center of the world, because you are the center of your world. Okay. What else are we going to talk about here? All right, let's talk about these retrogrades. All right, so at the time of this lunation, Saturn is stationing retrograde. So he's not direct and he's not retrograde. He is stationing. He's standing still. When a planet stands still, it is expressing itself at its most strongest ability. And so Saturn is a focal point of this lunation. It is also in a square to the ruling planet of Gemini, Mercury, which is also here in Gemini at the time of this eclipse. It is conjunct the asteroid Sphinx. So like part of the message, part of the information coming through your mind is to embrace the riddle, embrace the unknown, right? And it's in a square to Saturn. in order to build some sort of foundation, a spiritual foundation that will be reassessed and rebuilt over the coming retrograde. So Saturn retrograde starts the day of the moon. It starts on the 17th. And it starts at 7 degrees of Pisces. Now, Saturn is going to station retrograde, and it's going to transit all the way back to 0 degrees of Pisces. Throughout its retrograde, it's going to conjunct the asteroid Eros, passions, desires, our life force energy, that essence of like raw love for something spiritual, love for something unseen, love for something multidimensional. And then it's going to station direct in November, on November 4th, conjunct one of those 4 royal fixed stars, the Eye of the Fish, which is said to bring profound success, but success that is rooted in noble ideals, right? So this is the lesson of the Saturn retrograde. It's a reassessment of our spiritual foundations. It's a reassessment of this archetypal spiritual dimension. And it's going to be in a square, stations in a square to Mercury. So it's reassessing the message, it's reassessing the information, and it's taking action in order to do so. It's taking needed action in order to come more deeper into alignment. Squares are fucking necessary. I'm convinced that the outlook on squares in the spiritual community stemmed from the exact same outlook on retrogrades in the spiritual community. It stems from either a psyop completely trying to get us to not evolve and grow, or just a fear out of growth, a fear out of action, a fear of action, right? So we have 2 planets stationing retrograde this month, both of which are significant. Saturn stationing retrograde at the time of this moon. Look and see where Saturn falls for you. Now, wherever Saturn has been, Saturn is a planet of limitations and structure and restriction, and usually with the goal of helping us build something that will last. But wherever he's been transiting, whatever house, you've had a lot of like limitations and restriction. For me, it's in my 7th house, so I'm actually like really looking forward to Saturn getting off my ass a little bit and reeling it back somewhat. But looking to see where Pisces falls for you will help you to see what house Pisces falls for you, will help you to see where both this Saturn and this Neptune retrograde are falling. So while Saturn stations retrograde on the 17th and stations direct on the 11th, Neptune stations retrograde on the 30th at 27 degrees of Pisces in an exact square to both the galactic center and the pole star, activating that axis mundi. And it will transit all the way back to 24 degrees of Pisces and station direct on December 6th. Now, both of these retrogrades are harmoniously aspecting planets that revolve around our growth and our transformation. Saturn stations retrograde in a sextile to Jupiter and the North Node, a harmonious aspect with the planet of growth, with the planet of expansion, with the planet of abundance, with the planet of higher knowledge and growth and expansion that currently is being guided by the hand of fate and destiny. Something was initiated here. This was right when I was like starting my website. This is in my 9th house of the teacher, the guide, academia, right? So Jupiter is in a sextile to Saturn. So it's in a square to Mercury. So, a square to Saturn really forces us to learn some lessons, take some responsibility, take some action in order to build something that will last. Faulty foundational shit will be shown to us so that we can get rid of what's in the way and come more deeper into alignment, right? This will revolve around our growth and our expansion of our mind. Now, Neptune stations retrograde in a sextile to Pluto retrograde. Both of these are sextiles. Sextiles are harmonious aspects, but they're not like trines, which are just like automatic, free-flowing energy coming to just work in a synergistic way. Sextiles are harmonious and they are free-flowing, but you have to reach out and grab them. They too require some form of action in order to reap the rewards, right? So looking to see where Taurus and Capricorn fall for you will help you to see where some of this aid is coming from. Aid that is designed to help us grow, to fulfill our birthright, and aid that's designed to help us literally alchemize and transform. Something that we have been transforming for a long fucking time, because Pluto is retrograde at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Now, it has transited all through Capricorn since 2008. It moved into Aquarius in March, and it recently stationed retrograde and dipped back into Capricorn. Now, it is going to be here in Capricorn until November of 2024. So from now until 2024, we are reassessing, re-alchemizing, retransforming the tail end of a huge transformation that has been transpiring since 2008 in whatever area of your life Capricorn governs, right? And this Pluto retrograde and Pluto's transit through here till 2024, and this Neptune retrograde, which sits in a sextile to Pluto retrograde, are all connected, right? So the deep transformation that is transpiring in the realm of Capricorn is innately tied to this spiritual retrograde that will be happening in Pisces. Now, everybody's talking about this Neptune square, and nobody seems to be mentioning the fact that Neptune's about to go retrograde. Neptune will station retrograde on the 30th. So while it may seem like we're in some sort of like Neptunian fog or illusion or delusion or fantasy or shit is confusing, that is temporary. Once Neptune stations retrograde on the 30th, illusions will start to shatter. Neptune retrograde is literally the transit of shattering illusions. Every time Neptune retrogrades, especially in Pisces, the realm of spirituality, illusions just shadow before your eyes. In this case, it's going to be spiritual illusions. Illusions around our fears. Illusions around our unconscious forces. Illusions around our shadows. Illusions around our spiritual practices. Illusions around our dreams and our fantasy and our vision, right? Our vision will clear up immensely once Neptune stations retrograde on the 30th in a square to this same axis Mundi. So things will really clear up over the coming weeks. I love Neptune retrogrades. They're my favorite. Okay. We talked about this. We talked about this. We talked about that. We talked about that. Okay, so I just want to point out one more thing. These 90-degree aspects, you guys hear me talk about this all the time. These 90-degree aspects manifest things into being. And so this is a really great this is a really great new moon for manifestation, because you're having that trigger, that square, that tension, that forced action coming through that mystical planet of Neptune. Also, pay attention to your dreams at this time and the visions that come through, because they're really plugged into the realm of creativity itself. Gemini represents multiple truths that are all compiled into one great whole, right? These are all the multiple truths, and they're all compiled into one great whole. You can very much experience confusion during this lunation if you lack a spiritual center. But this confusion, in and of itself, this Neptune square, the confusion that it may bring, is designed to trigger you in such a way to force you to find this spiritual center. If we're never triggered, if we're never tested, Saturn, we can never grow. All right? Do not fear this moon. It's fucking beautiful. All right, let's go to the cards, and then we'll see what time it is, and I may or may not read from this book, Astrotherapy. I found some good shit here. All right, let me go to the cards. All right, so this is the Gemini page from the Honeycomb Planner. I was hoping that they were going to have their affiliate program set up by the time my course launched. They have me on the list, but I don't think they're ready. But this is definitely going to be one of the resources I highly recommend to get for those of you who will be taking my course. The Honeycomb Planner is phenomenal. I will have a link available for you, whether it's an affiliate link or just a regular link, on the first day of class. And I paid extra for the one with the art, and this is the art for Gemini. So it says, I am the rapid fire intelligence of primordial data and cosmic code. The connecting strands of DNA in the lines that reveal the constellations. I am the translator of thought, experience, and language that enables the creative dynamism of life and soul to unfurl the fractaling infinitudes. All right, so here are the cards I pulled. You guys, look at these fucking cards. These cards, they're just too accurate sometimes. They kind of freak me out. I'm like, what the hell? Like, look at this. This archetypal card I pulled is the Vision. The Vision itself just already speaks to Neptune. Neptune really is that planet of like vision and mysticism. This right here is literally the Axis Mundi with its peak and its roots in that like cave where the light is found in the depths of the cave too, right? We have the Axis Mundi, which is guarded by a serpent. The tree is always guarded by some form of a serpent. I love how it has the hands up at the top and the bottom, really representing the top and bottom of this tree, of this Axis Mundi, of this pillar. And then the two owls for the duality, the pillars of Gemini. Like, it's so beautiful. The other card I pulled is, of course, the Dimension of Water, which speaks so heavily to Neptune. It says at the bottom, holistic synergy. And like, look at this card and all these hands like spinning around this central point. Doesn't this look so much like the stars all rotating around the pole star throughout the night? Like, what the heck? It's so perfect. Okay, so let's read these from the books. All right, the Vision. This is the main archetypal energy coming really strongly through this lunation that you can harness by setting intentions or initiating things at this time. So this is the energy of the dream, the imagined, the revealed. It is said that we are each born with a unique vision, a destiny towards which we are aimed. It is also said that we forget this vision the moment we are born. The pole star astrologically and fixed star astrology is most strongly associated with helping you find your path and stay on it and avoid distractions, right? So this is really a great moon to set intentions around finding your unique path, your unique destiny, right? I'm going to start over. It is said that we are each born with a unique vision, a destiny towards which we are aimed. It is also said that we forget this vision the moment we are born. Thus, we are sent on a lifelong journey of rediscovery. Such is the elusive nature of the vision. It slips away, yet it guides. It appears in strange dreams and surreal images, seemingly unattainable and preposterous, that Neptune square. When we are connected to the vision, we carry an inspired, enchanted aliveness that others recognize. We trust the world and its synchronicities. We walk through new doors into wondrous opportunities. Or we fear a Neptune square and do nothing at all because we listen to some shitty astrologer. They emit energy more potent than any elixir, those who are aligned with this vision. Oh, wait. We walk through new doors into wondrous opportunities. We all want to be near those with vision. They emit energy more potent than any elixir. When we lose connection to the vision, life becomes dull and exhausting, lacking meaning. Bring back the mystery. Bring back the dreams. That is literally the Neptune square and the Mercury conjunct the Sphinx square Saturn, both of which are in, the Neptune square to the Gemini sun and moon, and the Mercury square to Saturn, both of which are in Gemini and Pisces, and this is conjunct the Sphinx. Speak so much to this last line. That's all Neptune wants from you. That's all Neptune wants, is for you to bring back the mystery, bring back the dreams. So I was going to say this earlier and I trailed off. The lesson of the Sphinx. I always like to talk about, you guys have probably heard me say this a million times, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's important. I always like to lean towards the mythology of the Greek Sphinx as opposed to like Egyptian or whatever, particularly connected to the Orpheus mythology. All right. So when Orpheus goes down into the underworld, he is first presented with the Sphinx, and he's presented with a riddle. And there are two different lessons of the Sphinx that Mercury and Saturn, literally the Lord of our lessons, who is in a square to the Sphinx, and Mercury want us to learn right now, especially while Saturn is in Pisces. There are two different lessons to the Sphinx. The first one is not to jump to answers. Like Gemini has a lot to do with like facts and information. And sometimes we can get caught up on facts that we miss the expanded symbolic perspective, right? So the first lesson of the Sphinx is not to jump to answers. The first lesson is that it's better not to have an answer and to embrace the unknown because you'll live to see another day. As the story goes, when he's presented and he's given this question by the Sphinx, if he answers correctly, he gets to move on beyond the Sphinx into the next leg of his journey. If he answers wrong, he is killed. So the first lesson is not to jump to an answer, because if you jump to the answer and you're wrong, you're going to die. So it's better just to embrace the unknown, turn around, walk away, and live to see another day. Embrace the mystery, embrace the unknown. The second lesson of the Sphinx, which is also the lesson of this Neptune square, is if you have the balls to answer, you must think an answer from a symbolic perspective, thinking outside the box and thinking in a more symbolic way. You cannot think literally, which is so hard for this Gemini essence. Gemini wants to think literally and logically and analytically. You cannot think that way and answer the riddle of the Sphinx. You have to think symbolically. You have to think archetypally. This is the lesson that Saturn square the Sphinx and Mercury is coming to bring through, and Neptune square the Sun. So you'll understand when I tell you the riddle. So this is the riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening? And the answer is a man, because in the morning, when it's a baby, it crawls on 4 legs. In the afternoon, when it's an adult, it walks on 2. And in the evening, the later part of its life, when it's old and elderly, it walks on 3 legs with a cane. And so you can see, if you think literally, you will never get to that answer, or you'll answer wrong. You have to think symbolically. You have to think archetypally. You have to embrace the unknown, the mystery, the unseen. And that is the lesson of this lunation. That is what Neptune wants from us. That is what the Saturn square wants from us. That's what Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde are going to want from us. The Saturn retrograde and the Neptune retrograde are going to be a lot of the rewriting of what was seeded here. We're seeking to learn new things. We're seeking to expand our mind. We're seeking to bring in new information. And because of the new information coming through, we will have to rewrite what it is that we thought we knew, right? Or the way we connect to the spiritual, unseen parts of ourself and our collective consciousness, okay? So a little bit more on this vision. You can gauge how connected you are to your vision by how tired you are. Since the vision feeds us energy, it affects our life force and our vitality. Now, a Neptune square is going to make you tired. This is a very draining, tired energy, but it's tired because it wants us to rest. It wants us to relax. It wants us to lean into that mutable energy, that energy of the fluidity that is very much coming through this moon. It really wants us to be more receptive. Look at art you loved when you were young. Listen to old records and poems. These are all ways to activate the vision. When this archetype is evolved, it is potent imagination, 100%. Potent imagination, synchronicity, and trust. But in its lower archetype, it can represent a disconnect from art and dreams, listlessness, and aimlessness. And it says to go deeper, you can watch Twin Peaks, which is, always a mind fuck, and it will always force you to embrace the unknown, symbolic, weird, multi-dimensional dimension. Okay, so this is the energy that's coming through, the energy of the vision, of this Axis Mundi, of this quest to the peaks into the depths of ourselves, right? How can we best do this? The card that came out, I don't know why this bar is down here at the bottom. It's really annoying me. I don't know. Anyway, so this is the card that's going to help us to do that. The dimension of water, holistic synergy. This really speaks a lot to getting right with that Neptune square so that you can channel its higher octave. As the energies of the dimensional expanse embody into the flowing feeling of life, an opening into completion arises. Meditation, empowerment, moving to reinforce itself, a quickening of the journey as the channels are opened, and an amazing grace of life as a living choice. This card points me into the opening within me that creates the opening in the world. It reminds me that if I cannot do powerful things, to instead do whatever I am doing with power. I am seeing life from simplicity, one point of perspective. What I am seeing is infinite complexity. Embracing both, I learn to feel the ebbs and flows of where I am at. With that knowledge, I can find the point to enter and ride the wave. Oh my God, this card is perfect. Oh my God. These cards are crazy. Okay. Inquiry. What part of myself needs integration in order to bring greater ability to my experience? Neptune wants to integrate something, especially while it's going retrograde in Pisces. It's going into that unconscious realm in order to reassess, reconfigure, and integrate something. So is Saturn, right? And it's something that is going to bring what part of myself needs integration in order to bring greater ability to my experience, right? And being able to not just see this one point of perspective, this perspective of simplicity from one little point, when really what you're seeing is infinitely complex, right? Okay, so last card from the Spiritual as Fuck deck, 99 inspirational cards for people who fucking need some inspiration. Where is it? Okay. So I love this deck. It's super blunt, and I'm like, okay, give us something blunt, straight to the point. This is beautiful for Neptune because Neptune really has a lot to do with compassion and empathy and forgiveness and like emotional connectivity, right? And it says, forgive the fuck out of someone today. You're probably thinking it's not that easy. Sorry, but yes, the fuck it is. Take all the energy you've put into being mad and making a case for how wrong so and so is, and let that shit go. Start small so you get the hang of it. The driver who just cut you off, yell, I forgive you, and wave. Secret bonus, forgiving someone usually pisses them off worse than anything else. Definitely don't have to like go out of your way to like forgive a bunch of jerks, but internally to where you're not holding on to the resentment, right? Gemini is associated with communication, has a lot to do with conversing and communicating. So this may be something you actually say out loud to, you know, a loved one, especially if these, if that T-square falls in, you know, your third house, your seventh house, things like that. Things that really are where we connect to those around us, whether it be through communication, through our siblings, through our relationship dynamics. If it's in your 10th house, maybe you're communicating something at a job, whatever it may be. The Neptune square is a beautiful energy for taking action in order to forgive, in order to seek deeper empathy and emotional connectivity with those around us, which is all very hard for a Gemini. Very, 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 very hard for a Gemini. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to try, my bun is super crooked. I am going to try and go live sometime next week here on YouTube to discuss the course a little bit more in depth. I was going to try to go live on Instagram, but it just glitches. It's so bad, and then it doesn't save, and they mess me up, and I don't want to lose it all, so I'll probably do it over here. Maybe I'll do something short over on Instagram. But if you guys have any questions about the course, feel free to email me or comment down below. I'm really excited. I'm super excited for the study sessions because I think we're going to have just such a great, like, small little group where we can really have some, like, profound conversations back and forth that really get you guys comfortable just, like, speaking the language of the stars, you know, to where it becomes second nature. You got to kind of like do it to get there. So it's going to be fun. I'm very excited. So again, of course, the first class is on the 28th. All of them will be saved for replay. This whole course is going to be saved. All of the videos will be saved, even the live ones. So keep that in mind if you're coming in, that you will be recorded. You don't have to use your video, right? You can even use like a fake name if you want. I don't care. But you are getting it at a discounted rate because you're kind of helping me make it all. But once it's all made and compiled and available for purchase, it's gonna go up at least $100. I'm not sure. We'll see how big this all is when it's finished, but knowing me, I think these lectures are probably going to be pretty intense. So, I don't know, I'm excited. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys there at the first lecture. I'm still figuring out this website, so bear with me as I figure it all out, especially the live format. And yeah, I'll see you guys. Have a good one. The cats didn't bother us at all. What the heck? I better go check on them. All right. Bye, guys.